Hello, good evening, and welcome to our front. In the last 48 hours, there's been a massive conversation about the economy of the Republic of Ghana. First, the President of the Republic of Ghana yesterday actually spoke and made some particular references. He said government has inherited a dire economic situation prior to 2017. What has been, which is the case now, was repeated by the finance minister yesterday too, when he took his turn at the same economic forum, and actually when he spoke on several other platforms too. The president also says that since 2017 we have seen a world that has been growing, a country, that's Ghana, which economy has been growing at consistently 7%. Again, he says in the last 2 years, Ghana has been among the world's fastest growing economies in the world and also on the continent. And indeed, the IMF projected Ghana's economy this year to have one of the highest growth rates. He also said that the inflation of 7.6% recently recorded is the lowest in over 2 decades. The president was also clear in his mind when he said trade balance recorded a surplus for the first time in more than a decade. The president also talked about all our macroeconomic indices pointing in the right direction. These are words and specific statements that have been repeated by the finance minister of this republic too. Not long ago, the minister in charge of information has equally been responding to claims by one of the most reputable institutions in the country when it comes to economics, social, and other related research work. That is ISE of the University of Ghana. That elite investigative institution, which has done a lot of work on our economy, in its State of the Ghanaian Economy Report in the year 2018 and projections on the mid-year review for 2019, also stated categorically that we have had some improvements, but there are difficult declines over the period. For example, they compared 2017 to 2018 and 2019, saying that the 8.1 rather impressive economic growth we had in that year has been declining over the period. Today, ladies and gentlemen, one grouping that has not been heard on this matter, especially when they were fingered to have had one of the worst economic regimes in the country, is the period prior to 2017. That is the last NDC government. My guest, I'll be telling you about pretty soon after this break, is from that particular government. He was in charge of the economy. You get a good giveaway, and surely we'll be hearing more from him after the break. You welcome back. This is Upfront. Now, I was telling you about what the president has been saying. Listen to what he said yesterday at the Economic Forum from the horse's own mouth.
As you all know, the macroeconomic situation that my government inherited at the beginning of 2017 was a dire one. GDP growth at 3.6% at the end of 2016 was the lowest in over 2 decades. The 2016 fiscal deficit was 9.3%, and inflation at 15.4%. Our external reserves position at the end of 2016 was weak, i.e. 2.5 months import cover, despite having become an oil exporting country. The banking sector was weighed down by a plethora of poorly capitalized and weak and insolvent institutions, with potentially grave consequences for the entire financial system. Agricultural and industrial activities were down. Unemployment, especially of the youth, was widespread against a background of low incomes and high prices. This was the distressing state of the economy that awaited us in January 2017, despite an ongoing 3-year IMF extended credit facility arrangement that had been initiated in April 2015 with the previous government. Since 2017, we see an economy that has been growing consistently above 7%, and in the last 2 years has been among the world's fastest growing economies. Indeed, the IMF projects Ghana's economy this year to have one of the world's highest growth rates of 7.6%. Inflation for September stood at 7.6% in single digits, the lowest in over 2 decades. Our exports are growing healthily. Our trade balance, for the first time in more than a decade, recorded a surplus in 2017, maintained it in 2018, and we expect to maintain the surplus for this year as well. We've brought the fiscal deficit down to 4.5%. Our external reserves as of June 2019 stood at 4.3 months of import cover. All our macroeconomic indices are pointing in the right direction, and it comes as no surprise, therefore, that today Ghana is the leading recipient of foreign direct investment in West Africa. In the halfway stage of 2019, according to the Bank of Ghana, the banking sector recorded a profit after tax of 1.6 billion Ghana cedis, representing year-on-year growth of 36.3%, compared with 21% in the same period last year. The country in April this year also successfully exited from the IMF program with their strong recommendations on the recent management of the economy. It is gratifying to note that these important achievements in financial and economic stabilization have been recognized and appreciated not only in Ghana, but also internationally. Since 2017, the international rating agencies Standard & Poor's and Fitch have both upgraded Ghana's credit rating to B with a stable outlook, up from B- with a negative outlook and B- respectively in 2016, which has enabled us to access Eurobond markets at lower rates and longer maturities. Proper management of the economy has resulted in our ability to finance our flagship policies such as free senior high school, which is currently enrolling some 1.2 million pupils, the highest number of pupils in senior high school in our history. The program for planting for food and jobs, which has led to the revival of Ghanaian agriculture, bringing in its wake a bumper harvest in 2018 and exports of significant quantities of foodstuffs to our neighbors, with the same expected for 2019. The One District, One Factory initiative, which is ensuring an even spatial spread of industries in the country. The One Village, One Dam policy, which is guaranteeing all-round agriculture. The restoration of allowances of nursing and teacher trainees that were scraped by the previous government. The employment of 100,000 graduates under the National Builders Corps, the Nation Builders Corps, and the recruitment of 60,000 young men and women under the Youth in Afforestation Program. The National Health Insurance Scheme has also been brought to life, back to life, through the clearing of the 1.2 billion legacy debt of the past government. My government continues to demonstrate its commitment and determination to ensuring that the habits and sins of past managers of our public finances are no longer visited on this or future generation.
So this is really what the president has been saying in the last couple of days, what the finance minister has been saying, what basically every person who is in part of this government's economic management team has been touting. Wonderful records, also the fact that they picked up a very dire situation prior to 2017. Now, the man who managed the economy prior to 2017, at least for the last couple of years prior to that period, is my guest here. The Honorable Secretary, you're welcome to our front.
Yes, thank you very much.
I hope you are doing well this evening.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Now, it's been a very economic intensive last 48 hours. I mean, right from when ISA released the report and pointed that growth is slowing, which is a very worrying sign for them. They also raised concerns about revenue, which is not performing as well as they thought it would perform. And they were bold enough to proceed to say that, well, we should review free SHS, for example. And right where you sat yesterday, Professor Peter Korte made a categorical statement. He doesn't understand why boarding students are actually being paid for when it comes to what they call the free SHS, and something that we should look at too. But government's response today is that, well, we are not going to take your advice on how to do with free SHS. In fact, the president says it's because Ghana really, and these are his exact words, proper management of economy has resulted in our ability to finance our key flagship programs. And he talks about free SHS, planning for food and jobs, the revival of the economy. We'll start from there. The crux of our engagement today is to be able to rationalize and appreciate exactly what kind of tax structure are we running today. how is it feeding a productive economy? You do recall that prior to 2017 and the run-up to that particular election, the NPP, then opposition, stated categorically that they're going to move our system from taxation to production. How far have we come from the outside perspective in this case? You're welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
But that situation has been improved. Even you would admit that, I mean, from 3.4% in 2016, 8.1 was a big number. We've also had 6.3. We've also had 7.5, at least according to the IMF's projections in October for the year 2019. That is moving from a dire situation to an improved one.
Yeah, thank you very much. The point to address is how come an economy was performing below 4% and jumps immediately within 12 months to 8%.
Largely on the back of oil that's been established.
So who invested in the oil?
Yeah, the government that was in power, or you don't think so?
Precisely. So the credit. And I used to talk about the prospects for the economy. You know, that's the first point.
Okay.
That it is our investments and our support for private investments in Temfield Sankofa, in Etuabo, which is bringing in, you know, the pipelines and others, which have not been just been increased. It's what accounts for that growth.
But we're talking about growth in 2017, end year 2017, not the beginning of 2017.
No, I'm talking about, yes, but show me the MPP investments in 2017. That
You don't think there were any?
No, I'm saying that it's oil-based, right?
Yes.
And if you look at even 2017, non-oil growth
Was 4.6%.
was flat, yes.
Yeah, just like 2016.
Precisely. So the test is in non-oil growth. And so it justifies the investments that we made, you know, in the oil sector and which we put in place. Secondly, anytime the cooling of the economy now, anytime officials talk about the cooling of the economy, they point to global factors.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, 2015, 2016, were there no global factors? You remember 2015, after reading the budget in 2014, crude oil prices fell from $99 to about around $40.
Yes.
And we had to go to Parliament to
review,
you know, those prices,
estimates.
the whole budget, the estimates. It continued into 2016. Remember that countries with as much resources as Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Angola, and the rest went into recession. We never took Ghana into recession. So there is something about managing an economy, because when there's a global downturn, the BRIC countries went into a downturn. In fact, the downturn around that time was led by China, if you recall.
That's true.
It was BRIC-led. So the test was a test of resilience and how you could prevent recession, which is exactly what we did, and managed to invest. And our record of investments are there to show.
For those who do not understand what a BRIC meant, this is Brazil, Russia,
yes,
India, and China.
Which stands for the fast-growing middle-income countries,
yeah.
which we had become.
Okay, all right.
Right. Now, we also managed to start a deceleration of debt. And you can look at even the government's own debt reports and budgets, which shows that as at the end of 2018, the debt to GDP ratio is higher, or was higher, than the debt to the GDP ratio at the end of 2016, which was criticized. And we are continuing to borrow. I'm mentioning this because you remember that the charge was that we were borrowing and that you could develop without borrowing. Now, but the crucial question is...
We're talking about, is it the rebase debt, right? Because
the rebase debt.
Yes, okay.
Yes, the rebase. Yes, but even if you translate it, luckily the rebasing ended in 2018.
Yeah.
It's about the same.
Okay.
Yes, 73, 73%. But remember also that the end 2016 debt to GDP ratio, over which they had control, they used end March 2017 foreign exchange rate to calculate it. And so there's a difference of 2 billion, which had been added to the NDC's end 2016 debt. Yeah. And so yet with all this,
Okay.
You know, they have surpassed the NDC's record on debt management, which was decelerating.
To be fair, the president did not mention debt management. It looks like.
Of course, you are no longer going to mention it. Remember when he used to mention it? Then there were numbers which are deteriorating. But let me ask you a very crucial question. If the consolidation is for real, if the fiscal consolidation is for real, and let me try and break it down. When you say you are consolidating at a very fast pace, it means that your revenue minus expenditure, which gives you the deficit, right, is dwindling, which is the record they have been telling us. But what do you finance? What do you borrow to finance? You borrow to finance the deficit. So how come borrowing is increasing, right, when you are consolidating, and debt is also increasing, when what you are borrowing to finance? And this is the point, you know, my former boss, you know, said, or my current boss, if you want, President Mahama said recently,
okay,
that much of expenditure appears to be going, you know, outside the gift list.
Really?
Of course, yes.
But is that not illegal?
Well, we have said it cautiously, because if you look at the bailout costs, for example, for the financial sector, and I'm reading from the Media Review Appendix 7, you can see that the cost of the bailout is shown as what? Memorandum item.
Yes, a memorandum item, yeah.
Yes. You can see that the 11 billion deficit that was brought down from the fiscal tables is this. What you should be doing is to be adding the bailout costs, you know, here.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
If it's part of your main,
if it's part of your main
operations here.
So what you are having now is that you are having an overall deficit of 11, which you say you are financing at 11, and yet still you are financing below the line in their own numbers. You are financing below the line a difference of 11 minus 20.
I don't understand it.
You don't understand? Yes. What I'm saying is that the bailout cost, which is exceptional expenditure, should have been here. Added to the deficit.
Okay. But government separated for a reason, and it's something that they've explained. Their reason is that this was an extraordinary occurrence.
Yeah, they're talking about fiscal rules.
And yes, and they don't think that it really is fair to them for it to be added to their main operations.
Is it fair to add single spine expenditure? Is it fair to add subsidy? Is it fair
in the past? Also inherited some of
course,
these things,
yes. Yeah. And mind you, single spine was also a policy from the MPP administration. So why change the fiscal rules at this point in time? Why change the fiscal rules? Remember divestiture? It is here. You can see divestiture.
Yeah.
The divestiture, whether income or related expenditures in the past, were added. So what is it that is so exceptional?
But you must admit that there's some good things that have happened in the economy.
And I'm saying that, yeah, the good things are happening. But I'm saying that, you know, they should give credit where credit is due, because you are seeing a tapering of the good performance.
Yes. From what used to be 8.1 to the next 6.3.
At a time, Raymond, at a time when you have 3 oil fields, not 1.
Okay.
At a time when, you know, revenue from the oil fields have quadrupled, nearly. At a time when output from the oil fields, right, at a time when output from the oil fields, which was at around 73,000, you know, barrels per day, and, you know, during the period of this commercial sale of oil until we left office, it had never crossed even the 100, apart from the very early days, right? And you know the tariff bearing issues.
That's true.
Today we are close to 200,000 barrels, you know, per day.
More than double the initial number.
Almost triple.
Yeah.
You are talking about 70,000, you know, to something close to, yes, let's say even more than double, but slightly lower than. And so at a time when that revenue, and at a time when crude oil prices have gone up from $40 or $45, which was the best we could achieve, right, to, you know, somewhere average 63, you know, from their own, you know, documentation. So what is it that is going, you know, that is happening, right? Remember, and my other point on all this, my other point on all this, remember, it was the NDC that was supposed to be increasing taxes.
Yes.
What do we see now? increase in taxes through the back door.
But there's been,
you know, explicit
the
ones
first
like
budget
ESLA.
reduced and also
No,
scrapped
it
some
did not.
taxes.
No, it did not. And
The first budget.
It didn't.
I didn't see the list of.
Please, no.
We saw them. I mean,
there were counterbalancing tax measures. For example, let me give you an example. So, you remove the tax on real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Which we had brought in. It's a consumption expenditure anyway. On financial services. Right. Non-core financial services, not the core one like interest. It's non-core financial services. And when I say non-core, we are talking about services that are given like, you know, credit card and other services, which is consumption expenditure. We should attract the tax. You remove from it. You remove the tax. And today you're talking about tax on umbrella, momo. Where is the fairness?
So they are thinking of, but they've not imposed one on Momo yet.
Of course, but you have increased, you know, the tax, the communication service tax.
Yes, communication service.
You've increased ESLA. And then you have blocked the credit. The credit with businesses. Please, let's listen to business. Let's listen. I'm not saying it.
Okay.
Business is complaining. You know, they started first by complaining, then they demonstrated it by beginning to increase the price of beer, the price of cement, the price of whatever, and they attributed all, you know, to increase in taxes. Exactly. And some of it through the back door, some of it indirectly. And when I say indirectly, this is what it means. Previously, Get Fund, the tax you pay on your inputs, representing Get Fund, NHIL, you were allowed a credit to offset it the way VAT operates. Now it is blocked just because of, you know, the need to chase revenue, which is not performing. Remember, revenue, I think there's a concession that revenue hasn't been performing.
Yeah, I mean, government admits that.
Of course, with 3 oil fields. So what is it that is? It is expenditure driven. And let me.
Because not able to collect enough tax. That's the main problem.
Of course, but at the end
which
of
has always been a problem anyway.
No, let's be careful. The fact that you are not meeting your targets, does not necessarily mean that in nominal terms you are not increasing taxes. At the end of 2016, total taxes collected provisional was 25.7 billion.
Okay.
At the end of 2017, total taxes collected 32 provisional out 0.2 billion.
7 billion more.
7 billion more.
Just between 2016 and 2017.
Yes, and the tax to GDP ratio, which was, you know, the same, right? In the effective tax to GDP, which I concede, was 15.25, even with an economy that was in downturn, you know, and it's 15.65, almost flat.
Almost flat, yeah.
Almost flat, right? So what is the problem? The problem is expenditure. And I'm on record. I believe I've said
the government says it's cutting expenditure.
Why?
The government says it's cutting expenditure. In fact, it says government is actually cutting expenditure to the detriment of capital expenditure.
I have just told you, I have just demonstrated here that the measure for cutting expenditure, and Issa can go to the appendices and see what I've written about it, right? And I think they have, I'm saying that the exclusion of exceptional expenditure itself, right? And the fact, I'll come to that, right? The exclusion of exceptional expenditure is never within our fiscal rules.
In this case, the exclusion of what we spent on the banking sector reform, that's what you're talking about?
Yes, and this was the first banking sector reform that we've done. And we also did banking sector reforms.
Not to the tune of this amount.
Of course, because, no, but I've always argued, Raymond, that given that ESLA, okay, let's take it step by step. First of all, the expenditure projection has been put on the bailout, has been put around 11-15 billion. Some say that we may end up with 20 billion. But you have an ESLA, admittedly including the enhanced road levy and the rest, which is going to bring in 28 billion, nearly 30 billion, you know, in by 2022, 2023. And this is from the government's own record. Why is this not sufficient to underwrite, you know, the financial sector costs? And why do we have to continue borrowing for the financial sector costs? What is substituting for that? What are the expenditures? And why have we now come lately, after touting the reduction of tariffs and all that for the energy sector, to come only to admit, remember, that there is arrears in the energy sector?
Yeah.
Where are those arrears in 2017, 2018? If it is being blamed on the NDC, it means that they existed.
Yeah.
How come they did not reflect? And how come we are now coming to reflect?
In our 2017 budget.
In 2017 budget, in 2018 budget. And how come it is in 2019
that they are
that
up.
you are coming, that they are popping up? Is that how expenditures pop up? For a sector, that is providing fuel, that is providing gas, that is providing, and I'm saying that
you are basically saying that there's something wrong with how we are doing the accounting and presenting.
Of course, we've written about it, and we have said it, that there is. And let me point out, if you go to the 2017 budget, and we may want to move on to other, I know. If you go to the 2017 budget, and I urge everybody to go to the Appendix 2 series, you will see, as an example, remember that, the administration said we left a deficit of 10.3%. Do you remember? Right? Sorry, arrears of
yes, yeah,
of 10.3%,
which you reduced.
Okay, you will see a very, I don't know how to describe it, mathematics day or arithmetic day, where the expenditure was 17 billion. We were supposed to have left additional 5 billion. If you add 17 billion to 5 billion, what do you get?
22.
22. I challenge you to, I didn't bring the budget, I challenge you to go and look at that budget, and you will see that 17 plus 5 ended up being 17.
What happened
there was
to the
a clear offset. I've been talking about this offset. And it only meant that, remember single spine, when we went to home and said that this was the amount of, remember, we even increased the percentage of tax revenue that we were using to clear, the single spine, arrears, and we carried it forward, and we had a program. What happened was there was an offset. And so the 5 billion was never carried forward, because the figure that was carried forward was 17 billion. And I should have, I thought we were coming to talk about taxes.
We'll do tax, but yes. I'm going to go to tax. I just want to run
I'm only saying
a couple of the things.
Excuse me, I'm only saying you may want your producers to verify what I'm saying now.
Okay.
And I urge, the commentators who understand the history, the fiscal tables, to look at what I'm talking about. That 17 plus 5, and the odd
ended up still being 17.
Being 17, and the odd thing is that 5 appeared, which is arrears, appeared in the cash portion of, of the fiscal table. Accrual, which should have been appearing in the arrears section of the fiscal table. And so and by our own calculation, the deficit wasn't 10.3 at the time. It was somewhere around 6%, which, considering, the depression that we had at the time, would have been reasonable.
And now we're looking at 4.5%. That's actually what.
Remember, it was supposed to be 3.9%. Are we doing adjustments? No, please.
I heard the president say 4.5 to be fair yesterday.
Please.
Maybe it's an update.
No, please.
A very possible update.
But I'm saying that the president, and I'm sorry, His Excellency, right, His Excellency is adjusting a deficit that is shown here. Overall balance deficit was supposed to be 3.3. So
yes.
Yes.
This is for 29.
This is 20. Let me go to 20 in terms of the correction. If you go to you can see, there is it. So you see the overall balance, which is the 11 we were talking about, was supposed to translate to 3.9. 3.9. This is now being adjusted 2 months after, reading the media review. How come the adjustment?
Maybe they have fresh data to suggest that.
Is it an adjustment for the past things that I'm talking about? I think it will be it will be good. Yeah, I
was confused about it. The 4.5 and the 3. So I heard the president say 4.5, and I in my mind have been thinking that we were doing, and of course
we were supposed to be doing 3.7,
but 4.5 is still below 5%.
Yes. Pardon?
It's still below 5%.
I said
we are still within the legal remit for.
I think I published an article where our calculation is at 7.5.
It's 7.5.
Yes.
Really?
That's what it should be.
I see.
Because another reason why we are saying that it should be is that when you look at the and sorry, we are being a bit technical here, but when you look at the adjustment, this is the budget, and this is the revised budget.
Yeah.
This adjustment, right? This adjustment represents the additional expenditure that is to be incurred. Now you can see that even though they came to Parliament to say that, they were going to, we had energy sector arrears and others for which we were going to increase, or we have actually increased
taxes.
ESLA and other taxes to, you can see that here is what? 000. No adjustment for the arrears. And then for an arrears for which you are now asking, for arrears for which you are now asking for taxes, to clear, finds its way in amortization.
Really?
Yes. Finds its way in amortization, and it is here. So the additional 5 billion here is shown here as amortization. And this is the amount which in the statement, was said was arrears that was outstanding and had left. Amortization means that
right from 2017.
Amortization, no, I'm saying that if you are borrowing for arrears, show it as arrears. Right?
Okay, I get you.
Because amortization means that you have borrowed and you are paying down the debt. So how come an expenditure, right? I hope you are following.
I get you.
How come an expenditure which remains unpaid, which in the fiscal rules and classification should be arrears,
is being seen as something you are paying?
It's being seen as something for which you had borrowed already. Is Parliament retroactively approving a loan that had been taken and which is already being serviced? Because that is what amortization means. Or again, is it contriving to make sure that you remain below the 5%? Deficit figure.
It's an interesting development. I've not heard government respond to this.
No, we have said it several times.
I've
and I've written about it.
Respond to specifically this particular point.
We have written about it.
I still want to have some time to do with the tax matters. Yes, before we go there, so you're basically saying that the government indeed inherited a dire economic situation prior to 2017?
No, I'm saying that the government may have inherited a situation about the economy, but it wasn't unique to Ghana.
Okay, it was actually a generalized
And
one.
I'm saying that, yes, and I'm saying that if you look at the performance of other African economies at the time, and this was the first time...
Some went into recession.
And this is not the first time Ghana, has gone into recession based on, performed, but we avoided, what other countries...
And you're also disputing that all our macroeconomic indices are pointing in the right direction.
I'm only saying that, how come from 2016, the factor that generated the most growth was oil, on the back of Tenfield, and on the back of,
the three
Sankofa,
oil fields,
the two additional in particular, for which production was beginning to start at the end of 2016, and then propelled you into 2017. And then immediately those benefits that were carried from the past, had crystallized in the 2017 budget. You are seeing a reduction. The figures are seeing a reduction.
But you can't dispute that.
The president, excuse me, the president's speech, which was probably for which the ministry had an input.
Yes.
How come within a matter of 1 week, it missed the point which the vice president made, that Ghana was going to be among the fastest growing economies, in the world. Yeah, Ghana was going to be there, but that's not among.
That has been revised somehow.
Within
the
a week,
president, yes.
Raymond, it appears we are adjusting a lot of things, this evening.
Yes.
From 3.9 to 4.5, and then from amortization to
consistently being updated.
I admit to that. I haven't been a minister of finance, I admit to that. But I'm saying that.
But it's a major shift from saying that we were the fastest growing to saying that we will be among one of the fastest growing. That's a major shift from that particular end.
But of course, we experienced this. Luckily, this is not the first time. Remember 2011?
That's true.
We grew at about 14%. Which on the basis was 11%. But of course, it's a spike.
Yeah.
And then which tapers.
Declines of a period.
Exactly. And except that we are seeing the non, so all I'm saying is that you are seeing revisions, in figures. You are seeing revision downwards in revenue. But we're not talking about expenditure. What is the true expenditure on free SHS? And why are informed professors and others saying, I'm on record to have said that it's not fiscally sustainable. And that does not mean that you are opposed to, education for people who would have, some of us sitting here benefited from scholarships and whatever.
I get your point, but the claim from government is that it's a non-negotiable point. And this is what the president said. He said it's the proper management of the economy that has resulted in the ability to finance some of these key projects like free SHS.
Oh, it's the inheritance. It's the inheritance of certain. Let me give you another example. We used $550 million to pay off the 750 part of the substantial part of the 750 million first sovereign bond, 2007. Guess who issued it? Actually, we had paid off 336 million before leaving office. And we had 200 million. And I challenge you, it won a prize. ESLA won a prize. We had 200 million, right, in the sinking fund. Waiting. And on October 4th, it was taken. So all I'm saying is
that's an explanation why.
No, but the point I'm making is that, sorry to cut it. The point I'm making is that if we had not sacrificed, as today with 3 oil fields, we have not redeemed a single bond. We are adding to it. Which is why we are seeing the debt.
Not a single one.
We've not redeemed it. We have only refinanced. And we did some refinancing.
Which is at a very high cost anyway.
With 3 oil fields. But the important thing is that we didn't have to fail.
Now, the point I'm making here is that the free SHS is bound to stay. It's going to be as it is, and government is going to pump in money, as government is saying consistently. The people who are suggesting some form of review, including former President Mahama.
Isn't it that the government is going to? The government, remember, has used oil revenues and others.
Yes.
And remember, this was a government that said they knew where to raise revenue.
Yes, of course. They said the money was there.
Yes, the oil revenue was already there. So when they were talking about additional revenue, to meet all those expenditures, remember, it wasn't with reference to, revenue which was already being, it wasn't with reference to DACF, which was being capped. It wasn't with reference to, of course, I did capping, but we reinvested in the sector.
Now, there's a question that's important in this case. Yes. Do you think the free SHS and its financial sources are currently sustainable?
In its current form,
ISA does not believe so.
But I've said it. Remember when the 2017 budget was read?
But we've moved beyond 2017. We are at a time where we have 1.2 million kids in school on this particular program.
But you should foresee. That's the fiscal point I was making.
Yeah.
That if you are, and I said at the time when I was asked, why are you saying that? And I said, 1, in year 1 of introduction, you have only year 1.
Yeah, 480 million.
And you have year 2 and 3, parents paying school fees.
That's true.
You won't feel the impact. In year 2, you have year 3, parents paying school fees. You may not feel the impact. In year 3, you will see the full impact. By year 2, we were taking oil revenue. Pierre has said it. We were taking, yes, right? And this is the basis on which we said, let's do this thing progressively and take the schools. At the moment, there's talk about infrastructure, right? And remember the point that was also...
Its review of the situation says infrastructure might have improved at all levels of education except the senior high school.
And it's going to get worse next year. Why is it going to get worse? I think somebody has mentioned it, repeated the point which I made back then, that next year you are going to have the first batch of free SHS going into the university.
A huge number.
A huge number.
Most likely.
Where is it? If it is a year away, right? What's
the investment to be made?
Where is it in the budget that we have made provision?
For 2020.
For expansion.
But 2020 has not been ready yet.
Yeah, but the year...
Of course, you have to do the projections ahead of time.
Fine,
you can't put up a building in just a couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah. Well, yes, you have to put them... And mind you, the media review just showed, so where is the expenditure for September? Is it all being accommodated? Well, we'll wait for the budget to see, whether all this provision for the remember that it was only first term that may have been covered in 2019.
Yeah.
So you need the expenditure coverage for free SHS, the full swing of free SHS in the 2020 budget, and you also need to take account of the September intake that is going to come into the tertiary institutions.
So education expenditure is really going to increase?
Yeah, but we've been making the point, and we are saying that is the reason why we needed to be progressive about this.
Okay.
Right.
Well, it looks like the suggestion from ISA is also in favor of progressive introduction.
Well, but I must say that to his credit, remember the Minister for Finance said he didn't understand why, parents who could pay.
No, but he was in. The then Minister for Information said it was not his duty. His responsibility is just to provide the funds.
Well, ISA is now saying the same thing. So maybe the then Minister for Information should have, listened carefully to what. It may not be a popular thing to have said, and I have said many unpopular things.
Interesting to know. Yes. Anyway, Ghana is today, according to the President, the leading recipient of foreign direct investments in West Africa. That's good news. It shows that our economy heads in the right direction, don't you think so?
We should have been doing better. But
yes,
it's an acknowledgement, yes.
Okay, all right. Now, I want us to move into the taxation period. I have less than I have a very short period to do this.
We were supposed to be talking about
Yes. It's an interesting one, but the time that I have to do this, I want to drill down to the point. Communication service tax. Is it another consumption tax? Is it like VAT? Is it an anathema to our taxing regime? Is this something that was expected? Because we know it was introduced a long time ago, not now. And it has actually just been increased.
The other point,
yes, the other point
you know why
is that are we really moving from taxation to production?
So your first point.
Yes.
When you go to Act 546, which is the original Value Added Tax Act, 1998, some laws were repealed. Among the laws that were repealed was the Customs Excise and Preventive Service Amendment Act with respect to sales tax, the Service Tax Act 1995, and the Service Tax Amendment Act 1997, which superseded, when the VAT was cancelled, the service taxes that were being collected at the time by the Internal Revenue Service. So service taxes are not new. And those days it was, court phones and other, mobile phones were just coming, Mobitel and, others. So the service taxes in the economy at the time were subsumed under the value added tax because we wanted a single consumption tax base. I think we should clear that.
I get you. It was at that VAT.
All the services taxes because we wanted a single consumption tax, and that's why the service taxes were amended. Then the Get Fund was introduced, not on services, on the VAT base.
Okay.
But it was treated as a VAT, and I just addressed it, right? And credit was being given. We are denying it. The NHIL was also introduced, and businesses were allowed to take input tax credit like the VAT, because the thing about the VAT is that you are paying the tax on your inputs, which previously you are not the consumer, because a consumer tax, you ask a question, yes, it's a consumer tax, right? Okay. But when a business, right, when a business buys from another business, they are not consuming, they are using it to produce.
Yeah.
So if you don't give them a relief, which is the credit, what we call the input tax credit, they will add it to their cost. You follow me?
I get your point. Yes. So, for example, if I run a business, like I run my institution, and I buy data,
we can take multimedia.
Yes, and we buy data for.
If you buy a TV,
yes,
and there's a VAT on it, right? And then you charge for adverts, right? And you put VAT on the advert, which is a service, right? You have a right to deduct the VAT on the TV because that's your only studio equipment.
I see.
You have a right to deduct it as that's what the input, because it's a tax on your input. But you, multimedia, is not a final consumer.
That's true.
Right. And even the advert goes to businesses who are not final consumers. So you also give an invoice with that business. So for as long as the transaction is between one business and another, right, the businesses will be taking input tax credit provided they are registered.
So that's where the problem with
CST
CST
that means that CST in its original form was
as
enacted
in service tax.
As a service tax was enacted and removed from the VAT base. So CST from its origin, we call it cascading.
Okay.
Resulted in a tax on tax. Because for as long as the tax is being paid among businesses, right, and you don't provide the relief, they are not philanthropists. They will add it to cost. So it's like property tax. If you pay property tax for this building here, you add it for as long as the law allows it. If you pay tariffs and there's no relief, you add it, and they add up to cost. So you see taxes and duties. We didn't want the consumption. We want it to be a true consumption tax. So until the product passes on, assuming the advert company, the company that benefited from your advert, money shows and other, were say a milk producing company, then when they sell the milk to the final consumer, then the credit ceases. But at that point, they don't have to add the taxes which you had collected from them because they are taking a credit. So, two things. The original, and this was the way the sales tax and the service taxes were operating. except for a few businesses under the sales tax, manufacturers especially, that were in what we call the ring. They were being allowed the dispensation. The dispensation was widened for everybody. So the communication service tax has reverted to the old sales tax, old service tax, and some of the old sales tax for which no credit was given.
Okay.
And therefore, any time it is charged by the telcos, it constitutes a cost. So if you increase the cost, the non-recovery of the tax increases the cost of production or the cost of doing business. And that's why it has affected the doing business. It increases the cost, and it ultimately increases prices. And that is so you can see that all the factors I'm talking about are in the telco communication. The fact that it has increased cost, the fact that the taxes have increased, they claim to have been absorbing some of them. Absorption simply means that they are not transferring, they may not
passing it on.
But they are deducting it against, their corporate taxes.
That's true.
Yes. Right. And so when you increase the rate, you must expect the price to increase. And no amount of, invoicing. The invoicing rules are very clear in the VAT law. The invoicing rules are very clear. You're right. The invoicing rules state that, for example, in the case of the telcos, you have prepaid, and you have postpaid, and then you have what?
The prepaid.
The prepaid, right? In one instance, you consume, you receive your bill, and then you pay. In another instance, you pay
before you consume.
And for all commodities, you pay at the time, you pay the tax with the price. Right? So this distinction between payment of the tax and consumption, I heard you discussing it, right? It's not here nor there. And that's the point Honorable Forson was saying, that the rules are there. Unless you enact, you go to Parliament to change it.
I have a question to end this conversation. Are we paying more taxes today than we're paying in 2016?
Definitely.
How do you say definitely when we have done some removals?
Businesses are saying it. We haven't done removal. One, remember the temporary taxes, which we call temporary, which we had started reducing.
The ones with
in tax. Remember the GET Fund, NHIL, and the flat rate VAT, which was reintroduced, and others deny input tax credit, and therefore they result in an increase in cost, and therefore an indirect. That's why it's an indirect tax, an indirect increase, in cost. Remember, we seem to forget that the top marginal rate of the personal income tax, right, has gone up from 25 years since 30 years to 35.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
And remember that businesses are complaining that in some instances, the regime for calculating duties at the port, results in a higher, form of payments, for tax. And so I challenge anybody. I have the matrix, which I believe I forward to tell me which of the taxes are resulting in a reduction. And my last point, remember, just when July, ESLA was increased.
Yeah, that's
so.
right.
How can you? Yeah. So with all these that I've said, how can you say that taxes have not gone up?
So the cost of production is higher now than it was in 2016.
It's business are saying it. They've issued statements to that effect. They are saying if something increases, even in 2019, right, it means that it's increasing on a certain base. And the base may have been last year, which took effect from 2017 and backward to 2016.
Mr. Husband, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm sure we'll still have an extensive conversation on the taxation systems in this country, mindful of your expertise in that area, to do it. In the nearest future, we should be able to do that.
Yeah, I hope so. I think it will be useful for, yes.
That's, not the ones
laced I hope that we wouldn't,
Yeah, I get you. Well, thank you so much, folks, and for joining us on today's edition of UPfront, and that's where we end the edition today.